Now let's try to understand another variant of lookup known as VLOOKUP. Now when it comes to VLOOKUP, there is lots of things which we can discuss. Now V in the lookup stands for vertical table. Now what is the meaning of vertical table and horizontal table? Let's try to understand over here. So what is the meaning of vertical table and horizontal table? Let's try to understand over here, and how does a lookup works. Now when I have a table, imagine that this is a table. And in this, imagine that this is a table, and in this is a column name such as ID, then there is name, then there is age, and then there is, let's say, city. So this vertical things are what are my columns, and obviously I'll have information. Let's say ID is 101 and I write name as A, and the age is 23, and the city belongs to as Mumbai. So this information is going to be my what? Row. So obviously these rows are horizontal in nature, and my columns are vertical in nature. So when the columns are vertical in nature, this type of table is known as vertical table. And this type of tables are suitable for VLOOKUP, where the V in lookup stands for vertical table. That is, the alignment of table which will be used for searching the data would be vertically aligned. Now what's a vertical aligned table? That the columns must be vertical and the rows must be horizontally aligned. Now what is the another nature of data or another nature of table available to us? So the another nature of table which is possibly available to us is horizontal table. Now what's a horizontal table? Let's try to understand that over here. So in this table you could see that the element or the value where, let's say, I have ID over here, name over here, and then comes the age. So here the columns are horizontally aligned. So these are my columns. Columns are horizontally aligned. And if I want to fetch certain details, let's say I'll fetch 101, A and 23. So these are my row elements which are there, and these are vertically aligned. So actually this is a transposed version of data which is there, and when we have data in this format, we call it as a horizontal table. So a table which we see over here where the rows are vertically aligned and the columns are horizontally aligned, the alignment of the table is horizontal. So when I talk upon lookups, which we saw earlier, lookups was helping us to look for the data which was there in a vertical table or it was there in the horizontal table. But there are other two variants of lookups. The very first is VLOOKUP and the second is HLOOKUP, which will be properly focusing on the alignment of table or the table array where the search will happen. If the alignment of table in the table array is a vertically aligned table, which means the columns are vertical and the rows are horizontal, then a VLOOKUP will proceed further. Or when the columns are horizontally aligned and the rows are vertically aligned, the lookup approach would be HLOOKUP, because the table over here is what is an horizontal table which we can see. Now this is a difference, a simpler difference between a VLOOKUP and an HLOOKUP. If we see in the real world use case, you know that VLOOKUP or the vertical table where the columns are vertically aligned and the rows are horizontally aligned is very much into use, is very much seen into market. But it's not like we don't use HLOOKUP as such, but at certain instances the VLOOKUP approach is very vividly used as compared to HLOOKUP. So we will be talking certain points to remember, or we can also call them the rules to remember for lookups, especially the VLOOKUPs and HLOOKUPs, not for the in general lookups which we have. So points to remember over here. Now the very first point to remember over here is a lookup value, which means the value which you search. You must be knowing certain elements over here now, the lookup value and so on. So let's try to first understand the key terminologies over here, and then let's see the points to remember. So let's say the very first thing which you know now, when we see with an example over here with the help of lookup, or let's say lookup value. Now what's a value? Lookup value over here. Now what's a lookup value over here? The value which is used to search a particular element from a range of cells. So the value used for searching, the value which is used for searching is nothing but my lookup value. Then there is something called as table array, or it could be lookup table. Now what's this? This is nothing but the array or the range of cells, or the table from where this search is happening, from where the search is being proceeded, or from where the search is being executed. So table array, the range of cells where the value would be searched. And result would be generated. Means based on the search, what result do you want over here, that would be generated. So table array is the entire range of cells, or the entire table which we will be properly selecting over here. Now after lookup value, after table array, the key important terminology over here is nothing but row index number, when you are proceeding HLOOKUP, because the columns are available into your rows, and column index number, which would be probably for you when you are looking for a VLOOKUP. That's a vertical table because the columns are vertically aligned over here. Now what is an index number? We got to know that row and column. Row means horizontal, columns means vertical. But what is the meaning of index number? Index number means position to the column of the columns, position of the columns or rows. Whatever values, whatever column, whatever row you want to fetch, what is the position? Where the position would be found? In the table array, which means what's the position of the columns or the rows which you have. For an example, if I want to show you an example of table or the row index number, column index number. Now row index number would be for HLOOKUP, column index number would be for VLOOKUP. Now imagine that ID is 1, name is second column, age is the third column, and the city is what? The fourth column over here. So I want to find out the age. So what's the column index number which I need to search? That is 3. Let's say if I want to find out the name, what is the column index number which I want to search is 2. So column index number is the position of the columns in my table array or in my table from where the search begins. Now row index number, similarly over here, it would be 1, it would be 2, it would be 3. Now this is for HLOOKUP. Why? Because the columns are horizontally aligned over here. So here you can see, if I want to find out the name, I obviously need a row index number as 2. So these are certain terminologies which needs to be focused when you are working with VLOOKUPs and HLOOKUPs. So this is there, and let's see now the points to remember, or few points to remember with respect to your lookup. The first point which needs to remember is the lookup value. The lookup value, now you know what's a lookup value, the value which you will use to search the data. So lookup value must be available, or part of the first column of the table array. Or lookup table. Now what does this means? Imagine that I am searching the data on the basis of their IDs. So in the table array, the ID, let's say 103 is what is my lookup value. Let's say 103 is what my lookup value. So 103 must be, or it should be, searched in the first column of the lookup table or the table array. So this value will obviously be searched in the first column. It will not be searched in the second, third or fourth. It should be there in the first column. If it is there, it will throw some value. If it is not there, it will throw you an error over here. But there are approaches in order to overcome that. So if you can see, this is how it looks. So as per the first point to remember, what we said, that the lookup value must be available or a part of the first column in the lookup table or the table array which you are using. Second, the lookup value column, which means the column where the lookup value would be found, must be sorted in ascending order. But not always. Now it is telling me the lookup value column must be sorted in ascending order, but when? At not all condition, but especially during approximate match. So this element or this condition would be specially there when there is something called as approximate match, which is there. Approximate match means it's not an exact value which is found, it's an approx value, that's a nearby value or the lowest value which we have. So the lookup value column must be sorted. It should be a part of your approximate match which is there, and it must be sorted in ascending order. That's what we require over here. So the result would be fetched. The result would be fetched based on column index number, which means the column from where you want to find out the result. So the result would be fetched based on the column index number. So every column in the lookup table will have a position, and that position is known as index position. So in order to find the result of that lookup value, you will require this index position to be used. Now this is what I am talking about VLOOKUP. Similarly, instead of column, if you replace it with row, it will become a HLOOKUP rules, or the points to remember over here. And the fourth one, we can decide that what kind of match element or what kind of search element we require. Do we require an approx match or do we require an exact match? Which means, do we want data to be approximately matching, which means if the exact value is not found, the nearby value would be searched. If there is a requirement that exactly if this element is found, then only give me the search which is there. So these are certain points to remember in order to lookups, especially the VLOOKUPs and HLOOKUP, not the in general lookup which we have. Now the points or the pointers which I have written is for VLOOKUP, as I said, but if you just change your column to row, it will become an HLOOKUP for you. So the same rules would be proceeded, only the table alignment. If the data is if the data is in vertical table, it's a VLOOKUP. If the data is in horizontal table, it's an HLOOKUP. Now you know what's a vertical table and an horizontal table. Now let's try to understand how these pointers work and how they will be different, because in lookup as general, there was no such specification as exact match, approx match. In lookup, which we saw in an example, there was nothing such as column index numbers or row index numbers. In lookup, which we saw, there was no such criteria that the data must be sorted in ascending order. And in the lookup which we saw, there was not specifically mentioned that it should be a part of the first column. We can also do lookup vector and result vector, and we can avoid that condition which was there instead of selecting the entire table array. Now let's see how does lookup proceed, how does VLOOKUPs and HLOOKUPs will help us to understand and work upon accordingly. So if I show you over here, which is there, so as you can see on my screen, that VLOOKUP in Excel is a powerful function that searches for a value in the first column of the range, that's a table or an array, and returns a corresponding value, that is a respective value of the same row for a specified column. Now you will mention that you want for second column, third column, fourth column, fifth column, and based on that you will get the outcome. Now the V in lookup stands for what? Stands for vertical. As we saw just now, what's a vertical table and what's a horizontal table, indicating that it searches vertically downwards in a table. And if you can see in an example, there is something called as lookup value, there is something called as table array, there is something called as column index number. Now why there is a column index number, not a row index number? Because we are using VLOOKUP. The data alignment is vertical. So columns are vertically aligned, so we will use column index number over here. And lookup, range lookup, which means do you want to find an exact match or approx match? So it's not mandatory as such, but we will see how does it works. So you can see the lookup value in this example. What's the lookup value which we have? That's an animal name, that's lion, so that's a lookup value. And where I am finding this lion as a value, I am finding in this table array. So this table array is an array from where it is being searched. And what is a result vector which I require? That's speed. So I will mention the column index number for this. In my in general lookup which we saw, there was no such requirement that I need to select an entire table, but in this there is a requirement that you have to select an entire table and then fetch the element based on column index numbers into your VLOOKUP. So certainly, as we saw that when I wanted to fetch an information from a particular column, I was mentioning the column index numbers. For an example, that when I wanted to fetch for speed as a column, so in my table array, speed was at the second column. So I will mention 2 when I am trying to fetch the information from there. Now, if it is said that it's already mentioned in VLOOKUP that we will specify, do we want an exact match or an approx match? Now what does that mean? That if a particular value is being searched exactly, then the result would be generated. Or if you want an approximate result, which is that if the value is not searched, so nearby value would be fetched for the same. So that we can specify or that we can handle in VLOOKUP, which we were not certainly doing in your normal lookups which we did, because it was doing an exact match when the value was certainly found, and it was doing an approx match when an exact match was not found by default. But here, if we wanted that particular element to fetch an exact or approx, we can mention those pointers over here. So this is all about the VLOOKUP in terms of theoretical aspect, but let's not be dependent on the theory version. Let's try to practically implement this and see how does it works. So if I show you the table which we used for the lookup, you can see that there is an employee ID, there is an employee name, there was an address, there was a salary, and for a particular name of employee, I was trying to search certain elements which were there. Now let's try to see VLOOKUPs and HLOOKUPs and how do they work. Now over here, if you can see that I want to generate salary of what? G1. Now let's see first with the help of VLOOKUP how it was proceeding, and then let's see how does lookup and VLOOKUP show the difference in them. Now if I do VLOOKUP, you can see it has certain elements, but if I just normally write a VLOOKUP for the same, so it looks for a value in the leftmost column. As I have said earlier, that what is the meaning of leftmost column? Leftmost column is the first column, and as per certain rules or the points to remember in terms of VLOOKUP, it was asking that the column from where the lookup value is being searched needs to be the first column of my lookup table or my table array. So that would be search. Now what is this? G1 as a name which is available in G5. That's my lookup value. So I can change the values, multiple lookup values I can change over here, and based on the changed lookup values, the outcome would be generated for us. So instead of G1 I can write OV, instead of OV I can write Pranav, and so on, and I will get the respective salary for the same. So this cell, the G5 cell, is my lookup value. Now what's a table array? The array or the table range from where the data would be searched. So this is a table array from where the data is being searched, from where the data is being found. So this is the range of cells. Now as I said, in lookup, in the basic lookup, it was not required to select the entire table or the entire array of information. But in VLOOKUP, we certainly need to select an entire array of data in order to generate the outcome. So we have selected this entire array. So that's my table array which is there, and I wanted to find the salary. So obviously salary will have a position, as this is a vertical table alignment where the columns are vertically aligned and the rows are horizontally aligned. So they will have positions. Now the columns will have positions, and those positions would be known as column index numbers. So the column position in my table array. So if I want to search for salary, what is the position of salary over here? You can see the employee, the name of the employee is 1, address is at 2nd, and the salary is at 3rd position. So if I want to fetch salary as an information, I need to mention a column index number as 3. So that's the position of the column which I will fetch. So these are certain things which are required. Now as per certain points or certain rules, let's try to see that is it satisfying or not. Now let's say G1 as an employee. The lookup value should be a part of the first column of my lookup table or the table array. Now if you see in this table array or the lookup table, G1 as a value, will it be found in the first column of the table array? The answer would be yes. So according to the rules of VLOOKUP, that is being satisfied that it is there in the first column of the lookup table. Now, do we know the column index position of the salary? Yes, we certainly know what's the position of the salary. So if I want to fetch details of the salary, the column index numbers would be probably what? 3. Now let's try to see how it is different from a lookup. So first, let me show the basic lookup which we did. So in this lookup, what's the lookup value? G1 is the lookup value. What's the lookup vector? This is the lookup vector. And what's the result vector? Salary as a result vector. So I mentioned this, and because of this the salary is being extracted. I didn't mention that I want to find out an exact match. I didn't mention I want to find out an approx match. So if you say I write J. So J as a name is obviously not there in my employees list. But if it was there, what do you think so? Where this name would be possibly available to us? It would be before G1, because alphabetically if it is sorted, J comes before G1. But it's not there. So what is the prior value which it has? It has Dhananjay. So the salary of Dhananjay would be fetched. If I write G1 but with one E, so you can see G1 salary would be fetched, but it's, if we have this value and if we alphabetically try to fit in, it will obviously be after GEEVAN, and that's why G1 salary is being found. Now if I write Kritika, now Kritika as a name is not there with me, but we have Kritika. So the salary over here would be fetched for Kritika. Why? Because Kritika as a name would be placed after Kritika alphabetically if it was there, but it's not there. So what is the value it will fetch? It will fetch for Kritika. You can see this is being fetched over here. But I never mentioned that I wanted an approx match, I wanted an exact match. If the name of the employee was not found, I don't want any detail to be shown. I want that error to be mentioned over here. But that error as an element is not being found over here. So here in this formula which I have used for lookup, if I do F2, you can see the entire formula. I have not selected the entire table array. So lookup is not asking to select an entire table array, but VLOOKUP is certainly doing the same for us. So another approach of this, array is being selected, and here the salary is being fetched similarly, but I didn't mention that I wanted the salary as a column. So it is doing the backward compatibility, that is the details of the last column or the information from the last column is being fetched. The result is being filtered or extracted from the last column of the selected array. And this is what I don't require. So I will try to give an exact approach. I will try to mention that what column information I need to fetch, and I will see that is it generating error or not when the value is not being found. So for that, let's try to do a VLOOKUP. So I do equals to, and I have something called as VLOOKUP. As we saw, certain rules which were required to be satisfied are being satisfied over here. So what's the lookup value over here? Lookup value is this cell where the values will be ultimately changing, and based on the changing values it will generate an outcome. So that's the lookup value over here. Now what's a table array? Now the table array, from where the value would be searched. Now you know that the table array, when it is selected, the lookup value must be the first column of the lookup table or the table array. So you can see name of the employee. So when I select it from here, obviously the lookup value is there in the first column. It would be searched in the first column of the lookup table. So that's a table array. Now if you see the third parameter which is required, which we never saw in my basic lookup function, that's a column index number. Now what's a column index number? In a VLOOKUP, we are selecting an entire table. Now from the entire table, which column information needs to be fetched? That what is the position of the element which you want to extract. So what is the position? If I want to talk and extract upon salary, so salary is at the third position of my table array. So I'll write 3, and then you can see range lookup, nothing is being mentioned. But if I write a comma, you can see true. When we write a factor as true, true is what? True is an approx match. The values in the first column. True is what? True is an exact. True is what? True is an approx match, which means the value of the first column or the value of the first column or the lookup value would be sorted in what? Must be sorted in ascending order. That's what we saw in the rule. And the another value is what? An exact match. That exactly if Kritika is found, then and only then it will fetch an information. Now when I am trying to extract details, now I am trying to search the value, search for element. Obviously I need an exact match. Why? Because if the value is not found, if the employee name is not available, the salary should not be available over here for us in terms of searching. So let's try to use false over here, and I have selected false. False means an exact match, and when I do this, you can see that there is an error. Now why there is an error which is being found over here? Because Kritika as a name is obviously not there into my table array. There is Kritika. So exact element of Kritika is not being found. So for that exact element, no information is being extracted. So you can see NA as an error because what kind of error is this? The value is not available. So when the function is running, so this value is not being found or this value is not being extracted, and that's why it's showing me an error over here. But let's say I'll write the Jeevan, and when I see the name, you can see the salary of Jeevan is being extracted because Jeevan as a name is exactly found in my data. Let's talk upon OV. Do you think so OV as an employee is available into my data? Yes, it is available, and exactly if OV is found, that detail has been fetched. So as you can see how it was different from the basic lookup which we did. In the basic lookup, there was no specific need that you have to select an entire table array, but here we selected an entire table array which is required. Now in basic lookup, there was no such approach that you want to find an exact match and approx match, but here we mentioned that do we want an exact match or do we require an approx match over there. Here we mentioned the column index number, that I wanted to fetch the salary as a column, but in lookup I never mentioned the column index number over there because I used to select the result vector, or the last column of the entire array was considered as a result vector over here. So this is how we saw certain differences with respect to what? With respect to a VLOOKUP and a normal lookup function which we proceeded over here with the same data. Now if let's say I'll write Purvi, and obviously Purvi is not there in my database, in my table. There is Purva as an information available. So what I should ideally do if there is an error? Obviously I don't require any or error to be shown. I can also write that not found or anything as such. So I'll use one more function over here in order to overcome this error as an output. So which function I'll probably try to use? I'll try to use what? If error. Now what is this if error? If error is also among certain logical functions which we have studied. I have not thought that at that particular instance. Why? Because I wanted to have a proper use case for the same. So here if you can see, there is error as a value being generated. So instead of error, I want something else to be printed or to be shown. So I will write something called as if error. Now what is the meaning of if error? If error means if the outcome of the function or the calculation or the formula is showing me error, instead of error give some different value in the outcome or do some different calculation as such. So if I write if error, you can see I've selected if error. Now what is this doing? You have two factors or two arguments which are required. The very first is value, when the value is being generated, and the next is value if error, means instead of value generating from the function, formula or calculation, is it throwing you error? So if the error is thrown, what else needs to be there? So if I see from here, you can see that when this function is running as a value, So when this function is running as a value, you can see what is being generated over here, and NA is being generated. That's an error being generated. So when the value is an error, what it should show? It should show not found, which means the employee over here is not found for us. So I did this, and you can see Purvi as an employee, because when it is trying to search an element, it's not there, and that's why it is showing you not found. So instead of giving that NA or the error or the value error, instead of error, the outcome is not found over here. So if I do OV, you could see instead of not found, what is being generated? The salary is being generated. Why? Because the value is being found for that. So if I show you over here, if I double click, and if I show you over here till here, you can see the value is being generated over here, which means the value is being thrown. If you want to see the outcome, you can press F9 key. If your F9 key is directly working, you could do, or function F9. You can see in the function F9 what is the outcome being generated by the function is being shown. I can do Control Z to go back to the function again, and you could see the value was generated, the value was thrown. If the error was generated, then not found would be thrown. So if I see with Kritika, yes, it is showing me what? It is showing me not found. So this is how the VLOOKUP is being proceeding further, and this is how it shows a difference from the normal lookup which we have. If I want to see, let's say there are certain things, or there are certain sheets when people or individuals share certain sheets with you, instead of writing false, they write 0. Now what does 0 means? 0 means in terms of the Excel false, and 1 means true. So Excel understands true and false in terms of numbers as well. So if you write 0, 0 means it's false, and if you write 1, 1 means it's true. So you can see it's showing me not found, but instead of false, I would have written this true. Obviously the function will never go into not found. Why? Because Kritika as an element was not found, but Kritika, as I said, that try to search Kritika. So alphabetically, if I see Kritika alphabetically would be fitting over here if it was there. But it's not found. So it is selecting the prior element which is there. And what's the prior element? Kritika. And whatever is the salary being extracted is this. If I change an element, let's say from Kritika, I'll write J. Now J, for J what it is being shown? $1,60,000. So what does it means? That J as a value would be available for us over here, but it's not there. So instead of J, what is there? The prior value. What is the prior value? That's Dhananjay. So the salary of Dhananjay is being extracted over here. So this is how an approx match is working when the exact match is not found. So this was a general VLOOKUP with the help of an exact match, and how does it proceed. You can see that there is no case sensitivity as such observed over here, and this is how a basic VLOOKUP can proceed and can work upon. Imagine that you had employee ID which you had earlier. So employee ID as a column, and I will add 101, 102, and similarly I'll try to fetch in for the rest of them, and I'll try to format. So let me add a format painter, and instead of this, now for the table array, now the columns, first column is what? EID, the second column is what? Name of the employee, the third is the address, and the fourth is the salary. So if I want to fetch the salary of the employee, I need to find out what column number 4. According to the rule, what was the rule? That the lookup value must be there in the first column of the table array. But j as a value, do you think so it's there in this column? So it's not there. So anyhow the value would not be fetched, because lookup tries to search from data from left to right, which means from the first column it will try to search for the rest of the column information in terms of the result vector or the column index number. So if I try to change my function over here and I use VLOOKUP, and this is a lookup value, that's the search value, and I'm trying to do over here, that's a table array, shift till this, and I say my column index number is 4, and I say that I want an exact match. You can see it's showing me what? An any over here. If I do an approx match, that's true. You could still see an error because one j as a value will never be fit in over here anywhere, and it's not being searched, and that's why it's showing you an error. So if I wanted to solve this problem, I'll write VLOOKUP, which is there is a lookup value. Now selecting the data not from the employee ID, even though employee ID is the first column, but for the search as per the rule it requires from the first column, that lookup value must be there in the first column. So I have selected this array. So the column index number for salary still remains what? 3. Why? Because this is the first column, this is the second column, and this becomes my third column. And then comes, what do we want? Do we want a true match or a false match? So let's do a false match over here. That's an exact match, and j as an exact value is not being found. So if I do Prachi, you could see the answer is being changing. So this is how an in general VLOOKUP works, and in general VLOOKUP proceeds. So let's try to do an HLOOKUP for the same. So in order to convert a vertical table into a horizontal table, what I'll try to do? I'll try to do Control C, and then I'll try to transpose it. So a vertical table would be arranged in a horizontal manner. So in order to align it horizontally, we have paste specials. Now in this paste specials, you can see there is an approach of what? Transpose. So when I do a transpose as an approach, you could see that a vertical table where the columns were vertical aligned and rows were horizontal, the alignment has changed. That is, the columns has been horizontally aligned and the rows has been vertically aligned over here, and that's a horizontal table. And over here, if we try to use a VLOOKUP, obviously it will be problematic for us. So instead of VLOOKUP, we'll try to see an approach of HLOOKUP. As you can see that we have transposed our data, which was ideally looking something like this, where employee ID, the name of the employee, address and salary were the columns which were vertically aligned. But now the data has changed its alignment and it has become horizontal in nature. Now what's the meaning of a horizontal table? Now horizontal table means that the columns are now horizontal. The ID which was there vertically aligned earlier is now horizontally aligned. Similarly, the name of the employee, address and the salary which is there, and you can see the rows which were horizontally aligned over here have been placed vertically, which means the alignment of the data table has changed. The alignment where the information is there is being changed. So as the alignment has changed, obviously the way to approach would also be changed. The way to extract element or way to fetch elements would also be changing. Now let's see how. So as I have done this, I'll just copy this element like Control C and I'll do it over here. Let's say Control V, and here I'll do blank. So as you can see that this is a horizontal table and this is how I need to look at it every time I'm working on it. and you can see there are hashes. Now as I've said, these are not hashes. This is actually a data which is not fitting into a particular range of cells, and that's why you can see that hash as a value being seen over here. So let me adjust it. I can select all the cells which were there and I do this. So it has adjusted for all of them. So you can see that this is how the horizontal table look like. If I do a normal lookup, how does it looks? And if I do a VLOOKUP, let's see how does it proceeds. Now if I do equals to and a normal lookup, now lookup doesn't care that the data is aligned horizontally or vertically. It just requires the required set of arguments, that the lookup value, the table array, and it will search. So it can search for a data which is vertically aligned, that's a vertical table, or for a data which is horizontally aligned, that is nothing but my horizontal table. So this is the lookup value which we have, and the lookup vector. Now what's the lookup vector? The range of vector, the range of cells. Now let's say the lookup vector is this, Control Shift and right arrow key. You can have this. So that's my lookup vector, and I do a result vector. What is the result which I need to generate? I need to generate their salaries. So I'll do Control Shift and right arrow key, and you could see that a result vector is salary and that's being fetched. So now let's try to see the approach or how the answer would be generated with the help of basic lookup and as well as with the help of the VLOOKUP which we saw, and how those would be different and how an HLOOKUP would come into picture. So if you could see that this is what my data looks like, this is horizontally aligned over here, and in this I'll try to search certain elements. So now what is the search which I want to do? I want to do a lookup. Now this is my lookup value. What is a lookup vector over here? This is a lookup vector. Let's say I'm doing this. So I've selected till this, and then what's the result vector or what's the answer which I need? This is the answer. Control Shift and right arrow key, and I press enter. It's showing me a value error. A value is not found. Why? Because the name of the employee is what? Prachi. And what's the lookup vector I am trying to search? This. Do you think so that this is a range where Prachi would be found? It's not so. And it's not even finding its exact match, nor even its approx match. Why? Because Prachi as a name in this range of cells will be fitting in nowhere, because it's a value and this all are numeric ranges. So alphabetically it is not trying to fit anywhere, and that's why it's throwing us an error. So what we can do? We have to change our result set. What is the result set? Let's say I'll do lookup. What's the lookup value? This, that is Prachi. And where do we want to look up? Now the name of the employee is the range of cells where we want to do it. Control Shift and right arrow key, and this is where the value is being looked for, and the result vector. What is the result being generated? Now let's see. The result vector is from this. Control Shift and right arrow key. You can see this is being generated, and you can see for Prachi the salary is being extracted. So is it correct? Yes, it seems to be correct. Now if I write some different name, let's say OV, is it extracting the salary for the same? Yes. If I write J, as we know that J as a name is not available with us, so you can see still alphabetically when a J is being fitted over here, it's after Dhananjay. So Dhananjay's salary is being fetched over here, and this is how it looks. Now this is what we did in lookup, and as I discussed in lookup that there is no such requirement for a lookup to have that the table alignment or the table from where the data would be searched needs to be vertical or needs to be horizontal. For any range of cells or for any alignment of table, the lookup value can search for the details. Now we have specifically VLOOKUPs and HLOOKUPs for a vertical table and for a horizontal table. Let's see how does VLOOKUP proceeds over here. So if I do VLOOKUP, Obviously, this table, the table array is not a vertical table, which means the columns are not vertically aligned and the rows are not horizontal in nature. So, let's first select the lookup value. This is my lookup value. What's the table array? Now, what is a table array from where I want to search? Now, it needs to be in the first column. So, I've selected this. Control, Shift and right arrow key. This is being selected over here. And then I do column index number. What is a column index number which we have? The column index number which we want to find. Now obviously there is no column index numbers because the column index numbers has what? Has rows. So I cannot give any column index number, but let's say I give 3 as a column index number. Obviously 3 would not be an ideal choice because 3 is a row from where the salary is being found. Now it's not in the column position. Why? Because the table alignment has changed. So if I do a false, that's an exact match. Obviously this is not being found. We had G1. So let's see if G1 salary is found. No. But if I try to do an, let's say true, that is this match, you could see that it's being extracted. That G1's, what is being extracted? That it is science. So that is being extracted over here. So that's possibly there when we are doing a VLOOKUP. But what did I wanted? I wanted what? A salary. So is it showing me salary over here? No. If I try to search for OV, it's there. It's still the same. If I try to search for Purva, it's there with me and it's still the same. Why? Because of something called as column index number which is being mentioned. What is a column index number which we have mentioned? 3. So this is the first column, this is the first column, this is the second column and this is the third column, which from where the data is being found. And you can see it is trying to find out what? The details of what? Science. But do we need this to be found? No, I don't want a column information to be found. I want a row information to be found. So I cannot be reliable on something called as VLOOKUP. I need to proceed with something called as HLOOKUP. Now what is HLOOKUP and let's see how does it proceeds. So I'll do an HLOOKUP. You can see looks for a value in the topmost row of the table. You know that the lookup value must be in the first column of the lookup table. That was a criteria for a VLOOKUP. When it comes to HLOOKUP, the lookup value must be in the first row of the lookup table. Why first row? Because the column has transposed itself to row. That's a basic thing which we can see. So it looks for a value in the topmost row of a table or array of values and returns the value of the same column for a row you specify, not for a column you specify. It's for a row. So when I take HLOOKUP, you can see what are the requirements. There is a lookup value, the value which would be used for search. There is a table array, the table array from where it will be searched. Now there is something called as row index number. Why row index number? Because the columns are now in the format of rows. They are horizontally aligned. So we need a row index number. And then the range lookups remain same, true for approx and false for exact. Now let's say this is a lookup value, that's Purva, and the table array. What's the table array which we have? The table array starts from here. I'll not start from first table. Why? Because the lookup value must be there in the first column of the lookup table. It's not there. So I'll select from here. I'll do Control Shift and down arrow key, Control Shift and right arrow key in order to select the data. So this is being selected. And the row index number, I will not write column 1, column 2, column 3. Now the columns are horizontally aligned. So which is a row from where we want to fetch an information. Name of the information obviously is the first row over here. Address is the second. I want to fetch salary. So it will be what? It will be the third row. So I'll write 3. Now what's the range or what's the criteria which I want? Do I want exact? Do I want approx? So I want what? Exact. So I've selected exact over here and it's fetching the salary for Purva. Now instead of VLOOKUP or instead of normal lookup, I have tried to use an HLOOKUP. Now HLOOKUP as an approach, what it does, it tries to fetch a data for an element which is horizontally aligned. Now what is the meaning of horizontal? The table from where the data would be searched, the columns are not vertically aligned, they are horizontally aligned, and the rows are vertically aligned. So it's a vice versa version of your vertical tables or your VLOOKUPs. Now HLOOKUPs are something which is used, but the alignment of table, you can see horizontal table. I have a very small piece of information, and in just that small piece of information, if I want to see it horizontally, it's becoming difficult for me to scroll it unnecessarily. So let's say till now there were only 15 records, but what if there were 1000 records, there were 10,000 records? It would obviously take a lot of time to me scrolling like this every time. So it becomes time consuming, and understanding a data in terms of horizontal table alignment becomes a little tricky, because we are being used to see table or see data which is vertically aligned. So for that particular reason, this is how an HLOOKUP works. Now in the industrial use case, obviously VLOOKUPs and HLOOKUPs are very vividly used, because when the searches needs to happen, when the data needs to be extracted, when certain elements needs to be matched and extracted and the outcome needs to be generated, obviously lookups, VLOOKUPs, HLOOKUPs are used in the market. But VLOOKUP is something which is more widely used as compared to HLOOKUP, just because one example or one reason why VLOOKUPs are very vividly used, just because of the way the table is being aligned. So this was about the HLOOKUP, and this is how HLOOKUP proceeds. Now as you can see that we tried to use an approach where it is finding an exact match for us. Now what's an exact match? Exact match is a match where exactly if that element or that value is found, then and only then the result would be fetched. But what if you don't want an exact match to be proceeded and you want an approx match? So what is certain use case where we can find an approx match for the same? So this is a use case where exact match was suitable. Why? Because if the name of the employee is not found, I don't want any other names, employees, salaries to be fetched or to be extracted. I just want my data to be exactly matching the value and then fetching the result. But there would be certain use cases where this exact match is not required. Let's see what. So if you can see a table over here, I have this table. Now this table is what? This table is a salary range and the tax rate which would be there. So if a person is earning 40,000 as a salary, then the tax rate or the tax bracket is 5%. Now the next person is earning 95,000 of the salary, then the tax range or the tax bracket is going to be 10%. And similarly for 1,20,000 it's 15, 1,80,000 is 20, and so on. So this is what a tax rate which is being provided over here for us. So this is the tax salary bracket range table which is given to us. Now here in this table there is serial number, there is name of the employee, there is address, and then there is salary. And based on the salary I need to show that what is the tax rate or the tax percent this person or would be paying or would be applicable with. I wanted to find something like that. So how I would do? Obviously first though I need to know two parameters. First is the lookup value, the next is the table array or the array range or the lookup table. Now what's a lookup value? Obviously I will search for what? I will search for this salary. So the lookup value is available in this column for me. So I'll search for salary over here. So lookup value is this. What's a table array or what's a range of table where this salary would be fetched in order to extract the tax rate? Obviously this would be seen over here. So that's this. So this table over here acts as a table array or a lookup table from where a salary respective tax rate would be fetched. So salary column details are my lookup value and this table is my lookup table or the table array from where I will be doing search. Now according to the rule, the lookup value must be part of the first column of the lookup table. So as we can see over here, is it the part of the first column of the lookup table? The answer would be yes, because salary range, obviously there is salary, so it can find out certain details over here. So let's try to use lookup over here. I will try to use VLOOKUP. So I'll do VLOOKUP. Now VLOOKUP is there. What's the lookup value? Lookup value is this. What's the table array? Table array from where the details would be fetched is this. Now what is the column index number? Means I want to fetch what? Tax rate. What is a column index number for tax rate? The column index number for tax rate is going to be what? 2. Why 2? Because salary range, where the salary would be checked, is the first column, and tax rate in the table array from where it is being searched is the second column or the second position. So tax rate, and here I'll do what? I'll do false. So I'll do false. I've selected false and then I do an exact match. Now do you think so 30,000 as a salary, is it possibly available into my salary range? No. So exact match, I've done false. So exact match of that particular element is not found. If I drag this formula, now you must be knowing that we don't write formula in all the cells. We have understood relative referencing. What does relative referencing do? We write the formula in one cell, and when we drag it further, the selected cells will also shift relatively and the formula would be relatively changing. So when I do this, you can see for all of them it's showing me NA. That's not applicable. Why? Chalo. Let's see that 30,000 as a salary is not found. So obviously tax rate would not be available. 45,000, is it exactly available? No. So tax rate would not be there. 68,000, it's not there, so it's fine, we got NA. 50,000, it's not there, so it's fine, we got NA. 1,20,000, it's there in my table. But why still it is showing me not applicable? The value is not found. You can see 1,20,000, it's there. So it should show me how much percent? 15%. But why it has not shown? You all forgot that I mentioned something, that relative referencing. So when I was writing a formula and dragging it further, so cells would have relatively changed. So you can see this is how it changed, this is how it was there. So when I select this, you can see the selected table array has shifted its position. So if I do control tilt, control decides, below the escape there is a small tilt button, I did escape, and just observe the ranges of cells which are being used. If I select this cell, the relative referencing has happened because this cell I selected when the formula was written. When I drag the value down, the selected cells have also dragged themselves down, and you can see it's dragging. If I go one level proceeded further, you can see that relative referencing is happening and the cells which were selected are relatively showing a change. But do you think so we require a relative referencing over here? No? Yes. For the entire stable range, I don't want it to relatively change. I want the entire table range to be fixed, that it should be fixed at its position. It should not change. But the salary as a column, it's fine, it should change. So I'll do control tilt again and go back to the data. So this approach which we wrote was completely wrong, where we need to choose referencing over here. Let's see how does referencing works. If I do equals to, if I do a VLOOKUP. Now what's a lookup value? This is a lookup value. Now I want this lookup value to change, so I'm not applying any referencing over here and keeping it relative, so let it relatively change. Now table array, when I select this table, the range of cells where the information is being fetched, I'm not selecting the column headers in general. If you want, you can, but I am not selecting, I am selecting the entire range of cells from where the data would be fetched. So this is the range of cells, and when I relatively change, I don't want this table to change its position. I want those set of cells to be fixed. So for that, what I will do, I'll have F4, so function F4 for me. So you can see before C there is a dollar symbol, before 33 there is a dollar symbol, which means that cell is being fixed. Colon means from that cell to D40. So before D and before 40 there is dollar symbol, so that is being fixed. So this entire cell range has been fixed. Now column index number. What do you think? So from the table array, what I am going to fetch? I am going to fetch the tax rate. Now tax rate available in which column position for me? In this table, what is the position? It's position number 2. So column index position is what? 2. And then I have what? I have range lookup. Do you want true? That's an approx match, or do you want false? That's an exact match. Let's say we do false and I do a tab key, and when I do this, you could see 30,000 not available, fine. 45, 50, till 50 there is 45, 50, till 50 there is no data being available. Now if I see 1,20,000, it should show me 15%, and it is showing me 15% because exactly that salary has been matched. So similarly, I am trying to drag this value further, and I'll give this percentage symbol, so you can see 15% is being fetched. But do you think so that exact match is going to work for me? How? It's not going to work. Let's see how. So you can see that salary as 30,000. Salary as 30,000, it's not there in the tax rate, which means that person is not applicable for any tax rate. So it will be 0%. Now if I want to talk upon 45,000, obviously 45,000 is not there, but is something less than 45,000 available into my table? The answer would be yes, that I have something less than 45,000. What is a value less than 45,000? It's 40,000. As you must be knowing the approx version which I mentioned. Now what is an approx value? Approx is if the value is not found, it will try to search for a value which is lesser than that, and it will try to fit in alphabetically. Now 30,000 alphabetically would be fitted before 40,000. So it would be fitted over here. Now 30,000 is not there. Is there something before 30,000 or less than 30,000? No, there is nothing. So that's why no value would be fetched. But what if we had what? We had 45,000. Now 45,000 is still not there into my table, but is there any value which is less than 45,000? Yes, we have 40,000, so I'll write 45,000 over here. So you can see 45,000 is not there, but yes, the value less than 45,000 is there, that's 40,000. So what's the tax rate which would be fetched, which should be a part of this? That's nothing but 5%. Because why I am using an approx match, let me talk upon this. The salary range starting from 40,000, then it will get 5%. Then 95,000 if it starts, then it's 10%. So a person who comes within a salary range of 45,000 to 94,999, obviously that person is going to have what? 5% salary rate or 5% tax rate which is required, and that's why I am not being very predominantly dependent on a exact match. Why? Because here there is a need of finding an approx match. That If it is not this, then try to search something lesser than, because 40,000 means from 40,000 to 94,999 is where 5% tax rate would be there, and from 95,000 to 1,20,000, but not even 1,20,000, it's 1,19,999. If the salary is falling in this range, which means it should give me how much percent? A 10% tax rate, which is there. So I don't require an exact match. Why? Because exactly these salaries are found, then and only then this tax rate would be given. But there would be certain employees which will not have exactly those salaries, it will have something in between them. So if something in between them is considered, then this approx match is required over here. So let's see how does it works. So if I try to delete it, I do equals to and I do a VLOOKUP. So this is a VLOOKUP. What's a lookup value? This is a lookup value. Then what's a table array? What's the table array? The table array is this. And column index number. What's the column index number? I want to fetch tax rate, so it's 2. And then there is something called as true and false. Now I want an approx match, so obviously I need to mention what? True. I can mention true or I can mention 1. You can see approximate match. The values in the first column of the table array must be sorted in ascending order in order to do that approx match. No, this is not your table array. This is your table array from which the search is beginning. Now the first column values, do you think so? Are they sorted in ascending order? Yes. So this is going to work. But if not, sort it in ascending order so that it becomes easy to map the values. So I'll write true. I'll do this, and you can see for 30,000 it's not showing me anything. Why it is not showing me anything? Because 30,000 is not there, but lesser than 30,000 there is no value. Let's try to drag in our formula for the rest. You could see we have not fixed the data, so the relative referencing is still working. So I'll select this and I'll press F4, and this has been fixed. And now when I try to drag the values, you could see the percentages are extracted very appropriately, and this is how it looks. For 30,000, obviously 30,000 as a salary is not there and no value is lesser than 30,000, so no tax rate is being available for this, which means this person is paying a 0 tax rate for us. So how I would do? I'll do if error, this is a value, and if the value is shown, value should be given. If not, it's not like I should always write not found, not available and so on. I can write a value, and you can see if not found, if the value is not found, if it is throwing me error, if the function is throwing me error, instead of error, show me what? Show me 0. And you could see that it is now showing us what? 0 for the same. So if I change the salaries over here, let's say I do 25,000. It was 50,000, now if I do 25,000, you could see that it is showing how much percent for us? 0%. So this is how VLOOKUP with an approx work, and this is how approx could be taken into consideration. So it's not always that you have exact match taken into consideration. You can also use and utilize the approach of approx, and this is how it proceeds further, and this is how an approx is implemented. Now I hope you understand how does the referencing work, how you refer certain cells and so on. So now as we have seen an approach of using lookups, how does lookup works, then we have seen how does a VLOOKUP work and HLOOKUP work, how does exact will give me the result set, how does an approx will give me the result set over here. So we have tried to understand basic versions of lookups, VLOOKUPs as well as the HLOOKUPs. Now let's try to understand few more things. Imagine that this is the data which you can see on my screen. It's having details related to ID, name, region and salary of the employee. And there is another table, that is VLOOKUP from another sheet, and that's blank. Now my concern over here is I want to fill in this sheet. Now I want to fill in this sheet, yes, but from where I should find the data, from where I should find the element. So the data needs to be fetched, extracted or searched from here. So here you can see data as a sheet is available where the data set is there, and then there is a sheet known as VLOOKUP from another sheet. So here I want to give the search data, or I want to store the searched information. So I want to look for a data or search for a data not in the same sheet but from a different sheet. As we have seen over here in this sheet, we were searching for element, we were searching for values, we were searching for the lookup array, lookup values and so on in the same sheet itself. But what if the lookup value or the table array is not in the same sheet? It's ideally available in different sheet for us. Will we be able to do it, or will we be able to solve it accordingly? The answer would be yes. Now let's try to understand how. Now if you want to search from this table, so this table or the table in the data sheet will become my table array. So this is my table array from where the search will begin. Now what's the lookup value? The lookup value is this, because for 1102300 as an ID, I want to find out the name, the salary as well as the region. So if I see the data table, you could see that we have 1102300. So what do you think? So is it there? Yes. What's the name? Mike. What's the region? Tahiti. And what's the salary? $1 lakh. So that needs to be extracted over here. So how I would do it? I'll do equals to, but before doing equals to VLOOKUP, let's try to understand the rules. Are the rules satisfied? Now, this is my lookup value. Obviously, this is going to be my lookup value. What's my lookup table or the table array where the data is being found? This is my lookup table or the table array from where the data would be searched. According to the rule of VLOOKUP, what was VLOOKUP asking for? That the lookup value, that is nothing but this ID, must be the first column in the lookup table. Is it the first column of my lookup table? The answer would be yes. That yes, the ID as a value is in the first column of the lookup table. So I can proceed further. There was one more criteria, that it needs to be sorted in ascending order. Now the lookup value column is not sorted in ascending order, but still it's fine. Why? Because I am not going to do an approx match. When an approx match happens, data needs to be sorted in ascending order, but I will be doing an exact match. So in that case, it's fine if you don't sort the data in ascending order. So if I do a VLOOKUP over here, I'll do equals to, I'll do a VLOOKUP. Now what's the lookup value? Lookup value is this. What's the table array? The table array is in the data table. So now see, when I come in the data sheet, when I select the data sheet, in the formula, sheet name and an exclamation mark come. When the data is being extracted or when the data is being selected from another sheet, this is how it looks. So this is being considered. Now what's the data range? You can see in the data sheet, this is the range of cells selected where the table array is found. And if I do F4, so you can see from first cell to this cell B3 to E13, the cells are being fixed. Why? Because I don't want it to be moving when I drag it further. So I have fixed the element. I have fixed the ranges of cells. I put up a comma, and you can see it's asking for column index number. I go in the table, what is the column index number which I want? I want name. So in my lookup table, what is the column index number for name? That's 2. So I need what? I need 2. So first of all, I'll remove this VLOOKUP from another sheet because I don't want that sheet. I want to enter a number. So what's the number? Name is the second column from where I want to fetch. And do I want an approx match? I don't require an approx match. I require an exact match. So I'll press up a tab key over here and I do enter. And you can see 11023000. Let's see 11023000. What is the name? The name is Mike and the data is being extracted correctly, which means here we saw that how we can extract data from a different sheet using a VLOOKUP. Similarly, you can do for the HLOOKUP as well. So if I want to show you again, is equals to, I have to do VLOOKUP. What's the lookup value? This is the lookup value. Where it is going to search for a table, it's going in different table. If I select this, this is being selected and I want this to be fixed. I don't want this to be moving when I move my cells further. The table range is fixed. So I do Fn and F4. So this range is fixed, comma, column index number. What is the column which I want to find? I want to find the name, so I'll remove this. So what's the column index number which I require is 2, and then I want an exact match. So I did this and the mic was being extracted. Now similarly, you can see the rest of them are extracted correctly. If I would have not made this part of the data fixed, it would have shown a relative referencing. So the selected table array would have relatively changed and I don't require that. So this is how it looks. This is how the data is being extracted and the VLOOKUP has been worked upon where it has selected data from a different sheet. So if I want to find out the salary, will I drag it? Do you think so that dragging would help me over here? Now if I do double click, what is the lookup value being searched over here? That's Mike. Why? Because relative referencing. So the selected cells, what was the selected cell over here in this formula? This. So this cell has shifted one position towards right. So it became what? This. Now when I go and search Mike into the first column, obviously it is going to throw me error. And that's why you can see that error is being generated. And the column index number is still 2. Now the name as a column is not 2, it's 3. Or like salary as a column, it's 4. It could be anything, but it's not 2 because 2 as a position was for name. So this becomes difficult. So what we can do, are we going to write multiple times VLOOKUP? Let's see. If I do VLOOKUP, this is a lookup value. This is the data, this is the lookup table, and I will fix it by Fn F4. This is being fixed. What's the column index number? I want salary. Now salary is at the third column position. So let me remove this first. I want it to be at the third column index number. And what do I want? I require an exact match. That's false. And you can see for 3, when I extracted, when I wrote 3, what is there in 3? 1, 2 and 3. 3 was what? 3 was region. But I required over here what? Salary. So instead of writing 3, I would have written what? 4. Because in the lookup table, I need to see that what is the data, what is the information being stored. So this is there and the salaries are being extracted. I can give the format of dollars, it's what is there, and remove the decimals, and this is how it looks. This is the salary which is there. So for Mike, is the salary $1 lakh? Yes, it's $1 lakh and it's being extracted over here. Now let's try to find out the region. I'll do VLOOKUP. Lookup value is this. Table array means the table from where the data is being selected. This is this. And column index number. Now what's the column index number for region? In the lookup table, you can see this is first column, this is second column, this is third column, and then this is fourth column. I want a region. Region is at the third column index position. So obviously, I'll try to do what? 3 over here. And do I require an exact match or an approx match? I do require an exact match. And this is there, and the region being fetched over here is Tahiti, and you could see that this is how it looks. Why it has shown me an error? Because I have not fixed the cell, not fixed the table array. I could fix it from here. If I do control Fn and F4, it's being fixed, and you could see now the regions are being extracted very appropriately. But don't you think so that every time for all the multiple columns, I'm writing the formula again and again? Can I choose an approach where I don't need to write the formula, but still the answer is going to given me? So how I can do? I'll use an approach of something called as match. Now what is match? Let me help you understand over here. So if I write match, so match is a function in Excel which is matching a particular element in the range of cells and giving me the position, that at what position this value lies. Is it at first, is it at second, is it at third, or so on. So if I use match, you can see returns the relative position. It returns the relative position of an item, means the value in an array that matches the specified value in the specified order, which is there. So I'll take match. Now in this match, there is also a lookup value. Let's say I'll take this value, that's the column. ID as a value I want to match. So match where? I want to match in the data table. You can see that ID as a column, it's being matched over here. So ID is matching at which position in the selected cells? It's in the first position. So when I do this, when I select this, the match type, do you want 1 less than, means exact not found, so less than that, or greater than that? So I want an exact match, so I'll select a 0. So I do 0 and I do this, and you can see the position of ID. What is the position of ID? The position of ID is at the first position. So ID as a column in this particular table is being matching or is being found at what position for me? 1. This is how match works. If I want to show you one more example of match, I can show you. So if you see this number 110, so let's say I'll write 1102 300, that's the number, and I want to find out the position. In this particular range of cell, what is the position of this number? Is it at the first position, second position, third position, or so on? So I'll do what? I'll do match, and in this match you can see it's asking for this value, and lookup array means I am going to match in this particular range of cells. Now I have a match type. If the exact match is not found, less than that. If the exact match is not found, greater than that. So it's 1, 0 and -1. But obviously I need an exact match, which is there, and you could see what it is showing me, 1. So it's at first position. Let's say I would have written 305. What's the position? 6th. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So it is giving me a correct position over here. So I will be using match as a function to work upon with my VLOOKUP in order to solve this problem. So first, let me match the elements over here for you. So in this I'll add one more column, let's say Control Shift plus, and here I'll give the index numbers 1, 2, 3 for the rows from the data table, and here I'll give the column numbers from the rows from the data table, and you could see that how it is being changing. So I will write what matching what, this element. So that's my lookup value. Where I'm going in matching it, I'm going in data table, and over here I am matching it. So in this range, tell me what is the position of the selected value or the lookup value. I will fix this part. Why? Because if I drag it further, it's obviously going to shift, and I don't want it to be shift. So I have fixed those cells over here. And do I want less than, greater than, or equals to? I require an exact. So I'll press up a tab key and done. So here 1102300 is at what position? 11th. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11. So correct, it has given me a correct position, that for 11th position it is being fetching, and similarly for the rest of them it has given me the position. Now I try to look out for the position of the column index number. Why? Because in the lookups we don't require row index numbers as such, but we do require a column index number. So how does it works? I'll do a match and I'll find out the index numbers for all of them. Now what's the lookup value? Lookup value is this ID as a column. Where I'm looking this value? Here. So when I do this, and when I don't apply referencing, you could see what happens. Comma, exact, tab, and I do OK. So you can see ID. ID is at first position, yes. When I drag it further, name is also at first position, but do you think so name as a column is at first position for me? No, it's in second position, but I have not referred this cell. So when a formula is using this cell, when it is dragged one level ahead, so the selected cells are also being pushed one level ahead. So this is what being selected. So name in this selected cell is obviously 1. If I do region in the selected cells is what? Obviously 1. And if I do salary in the selected cells is obviously what? 1. That's why it is showing me 1. And that's the reason why referencing is important. So I'll do match. I will have that lookup value. What's the lookup value? The ID as a column name. Now when you're using match, make sure that the column names, what you're looking for, and the column names of your table array are matching. Then and only then they can provide you an index number. If not, the index numbers would not be provided. So if I do this is a lookup value which I want. I have comma. What's the lookup table? This is a table where I'm looking for. So this is a column index number which we have. And if I do F and F4. So this is a range of cells which is being fixed. Now what is the meaning that it has been fixed? That when it is trying to match and when I move further, it's still going to stick in those cells in terms of matching. Let's say first value was ID. So ID in those fixed cells is what? Position 1. Next value is name. Name in those fixed cells is at a position of 2. Then region in those fixed cells is at position number 3, and salary is at position number 4. That would be given us. So you can see name is being extracted, and similarly the rest of them. Now you can see salary was at 4th position in this table and the 4 is being given. Region was at what position? The 3rd position, and that has been given. Now let's try to use VLOOKUP at once and not multiple number of times for each column. because here we know that the column name which we are looking for and the column name in the table array are matching. So I'll utilize a VLOOKUP over here. VLOOKUP, it's a lookup value. Now this is a lookup value. It should be always be available in this particular column. When I drag the formula and right hand side, the column should not change its position. The row could be changing from first to second, second to third, third to fourth, it's fine. But the C column from where this lookup value is found need not to be changing. So what I can do is, I'll keep it as it is and then I'll show why referencing is important. Now table array, what's the table array? From where the data is being fetched? From here the data is being fetched. So this is there, and if I do FNF4, so this is a fixed range of cells which we can see. Now it's asking for a column index number. So what is a column index number over here? Instead of writing 1, 2, 3, 4, I'll use an approach of match. Let match give me the index numbers which are there. So I will write what? Match. Match what? Match this column, comma. Where do I want to match? I want to match in this data table. I'll make this fix because in those fixed cells the matching should happen. That's first, that's second, that's third, then fourth. And what kind of match do I require? I require an exact match. So column index number is done. So when I do this, it should show me what? A column index number which is there. It should show me 1, it should show me 2, it should show me 3, and so on. And then here, what's a match which I require? I require an exact match, and it's there, and you can see it's showing me what? It is showing me ID. Why it is showing me ID? Because in the formula in the match, what did I select? I selected that I want an ID. So here I can select the name. And you can see the mic has been extracted over here. When I drag it further, it's showing me NA. Is it not applicable for us? It is. But why it is showing me NA? Because of the formula. When I have selected this column value or this value which needs to be matched, I have not implemented any referencing, which means now instead of name as a column, it is trying to find mic in the column ranges. If you can see in this, it is trying to find out mic. So referencing is one of the most important terms when you are doing a lookups. So let's try to understand what levels of referencings are required, and let me write down the formula again. So equals to VLOOKUP. Now I have selected this lookup value. Now when I have selected this lookup value, understand, when I go towards right, the selected cells are also going towards right. But do I require or do I want that 11023000 should change to the name in order to search? No. I wanted that C column to be fixed. That whatever changes should happen, it should happen with respect to rows, but when I shift towards right, the changes should not happen with respect to the column. So I will apply referencing just for the column. So I am keeping the column as fixed and the row as moving. So you could see I have fixed it. Now what's the table array? The table array over here is this. So this is being selected, and if I do F4, the entire cell is being fixed. Now column index number. What is the column index number do I require? First, second, third, fourth. I want to find out what? Match. Match of what? I want to match this because name is what I want to find. I want to find the index numbers of name. So, but you can see it's D3. When I shift downwards, obviously D3 will change to D4, D5 and so on. I don't want third column, third row to change. I want column wise changes to happen but not with respect to row. So I am fixing the row over here. You can see that whatever changes shift will happen, it will only happen from D to E, E to F, F to G. It is not going to show any changes from D3 to D4, D5, D6 and so on. Now I'll go in data table, and in this particular range of cells I want to match the position, to match the value and find out the position. So if I do F4, that's being found. And how is the match which I want to do? I wanted to do an exact match. So this is there. And what is the level of referencing in terms of VLOOKUP? I want an exact match. And this is being extracted. You could see that Mike, Becky and so on is being extracted, and the respective regions are also being extracted. So with the help of match, this is how the values are being extracted. Now I can show you with F4 how does it works, like control, escape, niche there is a tilde button, and you could see that when I am selecting, you can see I have fixed the C column and I have fixed the third row. So when I am selecting, when I move downwards, you can see that C5 to C6, C6 to C7, C7 to C8. But can you see that when match was used, in that match I fixed this row. So the row is not being changing. When I go towards right, you can see the column is still remaining at its position, that's the C column. It's still at its position, and from name the cell has shifted to what? E. Because I said column wise the shift can happen, but the row wise it is fixed. So it's still in the third row of what? Of E column. Similarly for region it could be extracted. So this is how a match has been helpful for us. Match as a function, what it will do, it will match a particular element in the range of cells and it will provide an index number for the same. So I have got the column index numbers with the help of match, and this is how it looks and this is how it proceeds further. So if I want to do VLOOKUPs with the help of match, this is how it will be proceeded further. So this is all about the VLOOKUPs with the help of match, and this is all about VLOOKUPs when we were trying to extract data from a different range of cells or from a different sheet where the reference table or the table array or the lookup table is not in the same sheet, it's available in the different sheet for us to extract the information. So this was how we can gather data in VLOOKUP from a different sheet. Till now we have understood what are lookups, and we have seen a lot about lookups practically as well as theoretically. Now we also understood what are lookups, how do we implement it, what are the various criteria and conditions to implement a lookup. At the same time we also understood what is VLOOKUP, what is HLOOKUP, and how VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP could help us to solve the search related problem for us. Now we also understood that how a data would be extracted from different sheets, or a VLOOKUP would be implemented from a different sheet to another sheet. So this is all what we have studied with respect to lookups. But there could be certain use cases of lookups as well. Let's try to understand those. So if you could see my data or my screen, you can see that I have one sheet known as India. Now dataset for India, that's the name, and you can see that there is ID, there is name, there is region, and then there is a salary as a column. So this is a table from where I want to fetch the data. Now not only India, but I have one more table named as Nepal. Now this data or this table also have same kind of information provided to me. Similarly to Nepal, there is a Japan table. So all in all, I have data sets spread across 3 sheets. Now I want to make up a search of data, I want to look for a data, but not particularly from one sheet. Now I have to look for data from 3 different sheets which are possibly available to us. Now how would I do it? If you could see the sheet, what is there? I want to find out the salaries of the employees where the IDs are provided. Now obviously the IDs are not only in the one table, means not only in the India table, it could be in the Japan table, it could be in the Nepal table, or it could not be possibly available to us. So if I want to solve that kind of problem, I have to look for 3 different sheets. Means I want to look for data not particularly in one table, now I have to look for data particularly in multiple tables as such. So how I would help or how I would be solving this kind of problem statement. So let's first go to the sheets where the table is available. Now you can see that this sheet, this entire sheet name is there, then there is Nepal, and then there is Japan. I am thinking to give this sheet as a name range. Now what's a name range? Name range is when I select a certain range of cells. You could see that there is one name is encountering in name box, that's C5, because the cell has been activated from the C5 position. Now if you can see that we have given the names of the particular tables or the cell ranges earlier when we were doing data validation. So similarly, I'll give a name range over here, that instead of selecting an entire range, I can directly use something called as a name range. How? Let's see. That I'll select this table and I'll give this cell as a name India. You could see that this cell is what? India. So when I select one individual cell, there is a cell number which is shown in the name box, but when I select this range of cells, you can see this range of cells are all together named as India. So I have named this cell range. So this is called as a name range. Similarly, I am doing it for Japan and Nepal. So let me select it from here. Let me give a name range. The name range is Nepal, and that's it. Similarly, I am doing it for Japan, that I am providing Japan as a name range. I could directly select the table from different sheets, that's fine, but I wanted to show you an approach of a name range as such. So if I go into the sheet where I want to implement a lookup, now what I wanted to do, I obviously wanted to implement a VLOOKUP, because the tables where I am looking for are vertical tables. So I'll be using and utilizing something called as VLOOKUP. Let's try to see how it works. So if I basically use a simple lookup, that is equals to, and I do VLOOKUP. So looks for a value in the leftmost column of the table, as you know. So it will look for the leftmost column and return the right values, because the lookup value must be there in the first column of the lookup table. So let's first see that my lookup value is what? An ID. The ID column, the IDs which are provided, that's my lookup value, and that needs to be there in the first column of each of the table. And I could see that yes, possibly all of them are at the first position of the tables. Now if I go over here and I do a search, let's say I do VLOOKUP. Now what's the lookup value? You know my lookup value is this. What's the table? Array. Now let's try to first go into this table. What's the table name? Table name is India. So I can go to the sheet. You know that we have studied how to gather data or extract data or consider data from different sheet in the previous example. The same thing we are doing over here, that I went into another sheet and I selected the range of cells. When I selected the range of cells, you can see in the formula bar that instead of taking the cells which were there, it is considering what? It is considering the name range which I provided to it. So you can see it is considering what? India. That's a name range which I provided to it. So it has considered that. So instead of selecting the cells, see, if I select cells till here, you can see the cell ranges are there, because it's not the entire, the range of cells which I have selected now, it's not a name range. The name range is from this to this. So when you give a name range, one thing to remember that you don't need to do any cell referencing over here, because the selected range of cells are being denoted by a particular name. So if you can see, the selected range of cells which I have selected are being denoted by India. So if I directly write this India, this entire cell range is being selected. So I've considered it over here. That's it. And I'll do comma. What is column index number? Column index number is what I want to search. Now you obviously know that I want to search for salary. So ID is the first column, name is the second, region is the third, and the salary is the fourth. So I'll write 4. And what do I want? Do I want an approx match or exact match? Obviously I need an exact match over here. So I'll go over here, I'll type an exact match, and that's it. So if I do this, it's gathering me the data. That's about 12,000. Let's see that in India table, is it possibly available to me? So there, I've dragged the formula down. Now in order to drag the formula down, you can simply drag it further by this cursor, or you could double click on the square box which is provided to you. The formula would be copied down, or you could select the range of cells by control and shift, not control, shift down arrow key. So shift, sorry, you can select the range of cells, you can select the range of cells by shift and down arrow key, not by control shift down arrow key. So I've selected this range of cells over here, and I do control D. When I do control D, the formula is being copied down. You know that control D is a shortcut in order to copy the value, the formula, and so on. So this is being copied further. Now you could see the salaries are being extracted. Let's try to see and cross verify, are they correct or not. 1102,300. I have just considered India table. So 1102,300. The salary which is being extracted is $12,000, which means it's correct. Now similarly, it's 1102,301. It's there again in the India table, and you can see $23,000 is the salary which is being extracted. Now in this formula which I wrote, you could see that I didn't select any cell range. The table array is actually the name range which I have written. So when you give a name ranges to a table which you want to give, you can directly mention the name range instead of selecting the range of cells, because the name is ideally denoting the ranges of cells. Here no referencing is required because that cell has been fixed with that particular name. So you can directly use the name instead of applying an absolute or mixed or any types of referencing which is there. So here I have selected, but the only problem over here occurs is the data which is being extracted is only from the India table. Obviously not all the IDs are available in India table. As I discussed earlier, my data is spread across in 3 tables. It's in India, it's in Nepal, as well as in Japan. So if the table is not found in India, or the information is not found in India, I want to go and look out for a Nepal table. So what I will ideally do over here, let's say I'll write basic. You must be knowing that if error which we have studied. Now what's an if error? That if the value is found, it's fine, but if the value is not found and there is an error, write something or do something else when the error occurs. So I'll be in this part, I'll write if error. I write if error. So when this function execute and it gives a value, it's fine that the value would be denoted in the outcome. You can see when this function runs for the very first cell where I have written this formula, it's throwing me out as 12,000 as a value because that's been founded. Now, if I want to say that if the value is not found in India table, write it not found. Let's say I have written not found. So when I drag this formula downwards, you could see that the IDs which were not found in the India table, for those particular IDs it has written not found. But do you think so not found is an actual approach, or not found is something which I want in the outcome? The answer would be no, because if the value is not found in India, I want to go and search in Nepal table. So when I want to go and search in the Nepal table, instead of writing not found, I can write another VLOOKUP. Now, it's not mandated that if error will only have not found, zeros or anything. It's like if first formula, first function or first calculation is giving you error, then do something else. So when the first VLOOKUP is giving you an error or the value is not found, go and search for another VLOOKUP. So that's what an approach which I am trying to do over here. That instead of writing not found, I am writing another VLOOKUP. Now it will be like if the value is found in India table, return the value, but if the value is not found in India table, go and search for the Nepal table. So how does it looks? I'll write VLOOKUP. So in this VLOOKUP, you can see one more lookups comes into consideration. VLOOKUP, what's the lookup value is this. Now, what's the table array which we have to use? A Nepal table. But as you know that we have named the cell ranges. So when we name the cell ranges, you can see when I'm typing Nepal, it is giving me Nepal as a name range, which you can possibly see. That Nepal as a name range is provided to me. So I don't need to go to a table, select the range of cells. I have named those range of cells. So I will write Nepal over here. Now, what's the column index number? In the Nepal table, as we saw, salaries again at the 4th position. If you want to see it further, let's say you go in Nepal table, you can see it's 1, it's 2, it's 3 or it's 4. So let's remove this and add the column index number, it's 4. And then what's the lookup range? Do you want an exact and do you want an approx match? Obviously I need an exact match over here. So I've selected it with a tab. Now one thing to remember, the brackets. The brackets are very important over here. So if you can see the VLOOKUP bracket which is from year till year, it's for that VLOOKUP. Now the VLOOKUP bracket which is year from year, it's for that another VLOOKUP. But the if error bracket, I don't think so it's being closed. So I have to enter one more bracket. That means it has been completely closed. So what does this function do and how does this function actually executes? I'll tell you that it will go and first find out in the India table. If the value is found in the India table, there is no issue, it will return the value. But if the value is not being searched in that India table, obviously it is going to return an error. But instead of giving error in the outcome, I have written if error. So if error occurs in this particular formula, it will go and search in the Nepal table instead of writing not found. So that's what it's doing over here. And when I do this and I drag my formula downwards, you can see still more salaries gathered over here, which means that there are few salaries which are being extracted from which table? From the Nepal table over here. So let's see, 1102309, that was something which was missing in the first part. So let's go and find out that is it available in the Nepal table, and you can see yes, the name is Alex, Nepal, and then the salary is $12,400. So if I see what's the salary over here for that particular employee, yes, it's $12,400 which means the formula which we utilize is still a correct one. Now again, it seems that the data is not only possibly available for us in India and in Nepal table. I still have to go and search for my data in Japan table. Now how I would do? In the first formula which I have written, if you see that what's an if error doing? If the value is found in the India table, it is throwing the value. If the value is not found in the India table, it is going in the Nepal table. But what if it is not found in the Nepal table itself? What I have to do? I have to go again in the Japan table. So here comes one more if error. How? I'll write an if error over here. Many people do this mistake that they will write equals to an if error. Not required. When you start the formula or function or calculation, at the very initial phase you have to do it. Later, if you use multiple formulas, functions within, no need to write equals to over there. I'll just simply write an if error. Now what's an if error and why I am using it over here? I'll explain you. So I've written an if error, so you can see that if the value is given out from this table, it's fine. But if it is not given out, instead of that value, let's say I can write not found. That if it is found in the Nepal table, it's fine. But if it is not found in the Nepal table, write not found over there. And brackets, as I said, are very important. This bracket and this bracket is closing for the VLOOKUP. If error bracket is started, it has closed, but the outer if error bracket is not yet closed. So let me close it up here. Let me close it up here, and you could see that I'll enter and I'll do this, and you can see where the value was not found. What it is trying to give me? It is trying to give me not found. But instead of writing not found, what I would love to do, that I would love to go in the Japan table and search for the data. So what I will do instead of not found, I'll write one more VLOOKUP. So I wrote one more VLOOKUP. What's a lookup value over here? Again, this is a lookup value which I am searching, comma. Table array. Now you know that we have given the name ranges of the table, so I will write Japan. So if you have not given the name ranges, go to the sheet, select the table, reference it, and then utilize it. What's the column index number is again 4, and what's the match which I want to do? I want to do a false match. Now I need to close the bracket for the VLOOKUP, and this is what it's being closed, and when I enter, you could see that yes, the data has been extracted from my Japan table as well. So here you can see that 1102.314 which was there. Now this has been gathered from Japan table. Let's see it is correct or not. 1102.314, $87,000, and is it correct? The answer is yes. So here in this particular approach, what we did, we were trying to first search in the India table. If the value is not found in the India table, go in the Nepal table. But what if it's not found in the Nepal table as well? Then go and search in the Japan table. So here if you see that we are using an if error. Why I am using an if error with multiple VLOOKUPs? That if the error occurs in the first search table, go and return the value of another VLOOKUP. If the error occurs in the another VLOOKUP, go and return the value of another VLOOKUP. That's what it is trying to do. So when the error occurs in the Nepal table, that the value is not even found in the Nepal table, then it will go and search in the Japan table. But now if you can see, there is still one value which is blank, which means that what's the value? Let's try to see. 1102.316. So I went over here, 1102.316. I don't think so it's there. When I went over here, 316 at the ending is still not there. I went in Japan table 316 at the ending, it's still not there. So when I tried to search in 3 different tables, I could not get this values. So what I could possibly do is, I could possibly write an if error to say that finally this value is not found. But where I will write that if error? It's like in this Japan. So if the value is not found in Japan table, then you return that not found. So I'll write one more if error over here. So this is a lookup value which is there. If the value is found in the Japan table, it will return it. But if the value is not found in the Japan table, it will write not found, because I have been searching in all the tables. And let me close the bracket. So I have closed the bracket and enter. So here you can see that the value where the employee's salary with respect to its ID is not found is written as not found. So this is how I have implemented multiple VLOOKUPs going into multiple tables, and I have tried to utilize them in order to search for my data, to look for my data and return some value as a result from my lookup. So this is how it works, this is how it implements, and this is how our VLOOKUP can work upon. So I hope this is clear. So here what we understood, that we tried to understand how a lookup could also be implemented when the data is spread across in multiple tables and we are trying to search the data from multiple tables which are available to us. So this was all about VLOOKUP with if errors and with multiple VLOOKUPs in order to search for data from 3 different table arrays.
Like this video, subscribe to our channel and comment on the concept you want to learn next.